Imagine making your one allotted phone call from a freezing, miserable jail cell, fully expecting to hear the soft, sweet, and unconditionally submissive voice of your dutiful wife. Joseph Duggar dialed that number, desperate for the comfort of the woman who had spent her entire life trained by the Institute in basic life principles to keep sweet, obey her husband, and endure any trial as a good Christian martyr. But instead of a weeping, supportive partner ready to stand by her man, Joseph was met with the cold, hard reality of a woman pushed to her absolute limit. Kendra Duggar didn't offer prayers, she didn't offer comfort, and she certainly didn't offer blind obedience. In a leaked audio recording that is sending absolute shockwaves through the entire Duggar universe, Kendra flatly informs her husband that she has retained a high-powered attorney. And the most devastating part? She tells him point blank that the lawyer is not for him. Before we dive into the dark, twisted details of this leaked jailhouse phone call and the disturbing insider reports that expose exactly what has been happening behind closed doors, you need to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. We are uncovering the deepest Duggar secrets that the family is allegedly spending millions trying to bury, and you do not want to miss a single update. For years, Joseph and Kendra Duggar were the undisputed golden couple of the family's reality television empire. They were the simple ones, the uncomplicated ones, the ones who never seemed to harbor the dark, simmering resentment of the older siblings or the rebellious streaks of the younger ones. They just smiled perfectly for the cameras, giggled through every interview, and lived quietly on a piece of land graciously gifted to them by the family patriarch. They were the ultimate success story of their fundamentalist lifestyle, churning out 4 children back to back in rapid succession, exactly as they were instructed to do. To the outside world, and even to their own deeply insular community, they were supposed to be the untainted ones, the ones who did everything right, the ones whose marriage was a shining beacon of purity, built on a foundation of unshakable faith and strict, unyielding gender roles. When you watched them on television, you saw a deeply traditional, perhaps incredibly naive couple who were perfectly content in their sheltered little bubble. Kendra was the quintessential keep sweet wife, always maintaining a joyful countenance, her signature giggle echoing through the massive family compound. Joseph was portrayed as the steady, reliable, if slightly dull, provider. But we now know, thanks to exclusive insider leaks and shocking new theories emerging from those closest to the family, that this flawless image was nothing more than a meticulously crafted illusion. It was a brilliant smokescreen designed to hide a reality so disturbing, so utterly depraved, that it makes the family's previous, highly publicized scandals look like child's play. The first cracks in their picture-perfect facade didn't happen overnight. They were subtle, easily missed if you weren't looking closely at the background of their seemingly idyllic life. Rumors began circulating within deep fundamentalist circles about how incredibly isolated and closed off Joseph and Kendra's household truly was, even by their own family's extreme standards. While other siblings were slowly branching out, occasionally joining social media or mingling with outsiders, Joe and Kendra retreated further and further into the shadows. Reports from individuals who formerly ran in their tight-knit church circles suggest an obsessive, terrifying need to control every single aspect of their environment. Whispers detailed how Joseph dictated everything, from the exact down to the minute times the family was allowed to leave the house, to who was permitted to even set foot on their property. Former friends have anonymously claimed that Kendra's trademark giggle was less a sign of genuine joy and more a deeply ingrained nervous reflex, a physically trained response to intense psychological pressure and fear. There was an unspoken rule among the broader extended family that you simply did not drop by Joseph and Kendra's house unannounced. But why? What required such heavy-handed, militant isolation? New exclusive theories suggest that this wasn't just about adhering to strict religious modesty. It was about containment. It was about ensuring that the dark, festering secrets brewing behind those locked doors never saw the light of day. There were alarming red flags that something was deeply wrong with the patriarch of this young family. People noticed a drastic, chilling shift in Joseph's demeanor. He was described by insiders as increasingly paranoid, constantly looking over his shoulder, and enforcing draconian rules on his young children that shocked even the most conservative members of their congregation. The obsessive control wasn't born of faith, it was born of absolute terror, the fear of exposure. Everything allegedly culminated in the devastating events of the 2020 family vacation to Panama City Beach, Florida. This was supposed to be a standard, massive family getaway, a time for the siblings and their growing broods to fellowship under the southern sun. But according to highly credible yet insider leaks, this trip was the very catalyst that sparked the entire downfall. It was the exact moment the ticking time bomb was set. According to shocking new allegations, this vacation is where Joseph crossed a horrific, unforgivable line. While the adults were distracted, socializing and managing the absolute chaos of dozens of children running around the beach house, Joseph allegedly found himself alone with a 9-year-old girl. The details of what allegedly occurred in those stolen, unsupervised moments are so disturbing, so vile, that they defy comprehension. We are talking about actions that shatter lives, actions that destroy the very core of innocence. The theory currently circulating among deep dive investigators and former cult members is that this wasn't an isolated moment of weakness, but rather the terrifying escalation of deeply ingrained predatory behaviors that the family had successfully masked for years. The agonizing 6-year delay between the alleged incident and the explosive detonation of this scandal wasn't some lucky accident. It was the direct result of a calculated, terrifyingly efficient cover-up protocol that the family patriarch has allegedly perfected over decades of burying family secrets. When the alleged incident in Panama City Beach occurred, the entire family machine supposedly went into immediate, ruthless overdrive. Insider reports claim that panicked, late-night meetings were held behind locked hotel room doors. Phones were allegedly confiscated to prevent any digital paper trail. Stories were aggressively corroborated, and a false narrative was hastily assembled to protect the lucrative family brand at all absolute costs. Joseph didn't just stumble into a mistake. He allegedly committed a massive, life-altering felony, and the immediate reaction of his inner circle wasn't to seek justice or protect the vulnerable victim, but to form an impenetrable human shield around the golden boy. Insider reports suggest that Joseph actually confessed his horrific actions directly to the victim's father. But in the twisted, backwards logic of their extreme religious sect, Joseph truly believed that a simple, tearful apology and a heavy-handed prayer session would completely erase a violent felony. He allegedly thought that by confessing to the spiritual head of the victim's household, the matter would be handled internally, quietly, and entirely outside the purview of the actual legal justice system. He genuinely believed he had gotten away with it. Following this sickening, alleged cover-up in Florida, Joseph packed up his perfectly oblivious-looking family and went right back to Arkansas. He stepped right back onto his father's compound and flawlessly resumed playing the role of the perfect, godly Christian father and husband. For 6 agonizing years, he walked around with a devastating secret, smiling for the cameras, leading Bible studies, and preaching about moral superiority while carrying the weight of an alleged monstrous crime. And what about Kendra? Theories wildly speculate about exactly how much she knew during those 6 years of suffocating silence in Arkansas. Did she notice the late-night phone calls? Did she see the panic in her husband's eyes every time a police cruiser drove past their heavily guarded property? Insiders suggest that Kendra was kept entirely in the dark, manipulated and gaslit by the very men she was raised to trust implicitly. She was allegedly fed a heavily sanitized, spiritually manipulated version of events, told that Joseph had simply struggled with a minor spiritual temptation that had been completely dealt with through prayer and family counseling. She was ordered to keep sweet, to smile harder, and to never ask questions about what happened in Florida. And for a long time, she did exactly what she was trained to do. She lived in a house of cards, blissfully unaware of the hurricane that was barreling toward her front door. But secrets of this magnitude cannot stay buried forever, no matter how much money or influence is thrown at them. The foundation of their deeply isolated Arkansas life was rotting from the inside out. As the years dragged on, the psychological toll of maintaining this massive lie allegedly began to fracture Joseph's sanity. Reports paint a picture of a man unraveling, prone to sudden outbursts of rage and deeper, more terrifying dives into religious extremism as a way to cope with his overwhelming, unconfessed guilt. The tension inside their home was described by anonymous insiders as thick enough to cut with a knife. Kendra, slowly waking up from decades of cult programming, allegedly began to piece together the inconsistencies in Joseph's stories. The blinders were slowly being ripped off, revealing the absolute monster she was legally and spiritually bound to. The sheer hubris of Joseph Duggar, thinking he could commit such an act and simply pray it away, was about to collide spectacularly with the relentless, unforgiving reality of the criminal justice system. The ticking time bomb planted on that sunny beach in Florida was finally out of time, and when it detonated, it would utterly destroy everything the family had built, leading straight to a freezing jail cell, a recorded phone line, and a wife who had finally decided she was done playing the victim. The inevitable explosion finally happened, and when that 6-year-old ticking time bomb went off, it completely obliterated the careful, pristine reality Joseph Duggar had constructed on his father's heavily fortified Arkansas compound. Insider reports claim the arrest was swift, humiliating, and entirely unscripted. There were no cameras rolling for TLC, no carefully arranged lighting, just the harsh, blinding flash of law enforcement vehicles cutting through the dead of night. Sources allege that Joseph was ripped right out of his perfectly manicured life, completely blindsided by the reality that his horrific, alleged actions in Panama City Beach had finally caught up to him. But the true, undeniable proof of this family's catastrophic unraveling didn't come from a police blotter or a sterilized press release from Jim Bob's damage control team. It came in the form of 4 excruciatingly raw, unedited minutes of audio. In an exclusive leak that has completely broken the internet, media giants like People magazine and Radar Online somehow got their hands on the official, recorded jailhouse phone call between Joseph and Kendra. When the public hit play on that leaked audio, they didn't just hear a conversation between a husband and wife. They heard the real-time, visceral death of the keep sweet illusion. You can hear the automated, robotic voice of the correctional facility operator cutting through the static, announcing a prepaid call from an inmate. You can hear the heavy, panicked breathing of a man who suddenly realizes his entire universe of absolute patriarchal control has been reduced to a tiny, freezing concrete box. And then you hear Kendra. For a decade, the public only knew Kendra's voice as a high-pitched, breathless giggle, a sound constantly vibrating with aggressive, mandated cheerfulness. But the voice on this recording is unrecognizable. It is devoid of warmth. It is flat, monotone, and chillingly precise. There are no tears. There are no frantic prayers whispered into the receiver. There is only the terrifying, icy resolve of a woman who has finally seen the monster hiding behind the pulpit. According to deep dive analysis of this leaked audio, Joseph immediately launches into a desperate, frantic scramble for damage control. He tries to deploy the exact same manipulation tactics he has allegedly used for years behind closed doors, fully expecting Kendra to fall right back into her deeply programmed role of the submissive, suffering wife. He plays the victim with a sickening level of theatricality. Through the crackling phone line, you can hear him whining, his voice cracking as he details the absolute misery of his 23-hour solitary confinement. He complains about the freezing temperatures of his cell. He complains about the terrible food. He complains about the harsh, unyielding reality of his new environment, desperately trying to elicit a trauma response from the woman he left behind. In the warped psychology of his extreme religious conditioning, Joseph believed that his suffering would automatically trigger Kendra's maternal, caregiving instincts. He expected her to weep for him, to assure him that she was rallying the entire church congregation into a massive, round-the-clock prayer warrior chain. He expected her to promise that she would fast, pray, and stand by her spiritual head of the household, no matter what the secular authorities accused him of. He was essentially begging her to validate his victimhood, to agree that he was being unjustly persecuted by a wicked, secular world. But the silence on the other end of the line is absolutely deafening. Kendra doesn't take the bait. She completely ignores his pathetic pleas for sympathy. When he pauses, desperately waiting for her to offer a shred of comfort, she responds with a single, devastating sentence that completely shifts the power dynamic of their entire relationship. In a dry, emotionless tone, She simply states, "I am currently at a private residence." That one phrase, "I am at a private residence," is a psychological kill shot. Exclusive theories from insiders close to the family suggest that Kendra didn't just wait around the massive Duggar compound for Joseph to call. Reports claim that the absolute second Joseph was taken into custody, a massive, unprecedented extraction operation took place. Theories wildly speculate that Kendra, perhaps with the help of rogue family members or even outside secular allies, instantly packed up her 4 children and fled the property before Jim Bob and his infamous damage control team could lock down the compound and confiscate her communication devices. By stating she is at a private residence, she is telling Joseph, and by extension the entire patriarchal cult listening to the recorded line, that she is no longer under their physical control. She is out of the fishbowl. She is off the family grid. The panic in Joseph's voice allegedly spikes the second she utters those words. You can hear the terrifying realization dawning on him that he has lost his primary hostage. The man who supposedly dictated when she could leave the house and who she could speak to is now locked in a cage, entirely powerless, while his wife sits in an undisclosed location, fully autonomous and completely out of his reach. But the absolute jaw-dropping climax of this leaked jail call, the moment that is currently sending the entire fundamentalist community into a total apocalyptic meltdown, is betrayal. Joseph, scrambling to regain any semblance of authority, allegedly asks about legal representation. He assumes, naturally, that his father, Jim Bob, has already deployed the family's vast financial resources and legal fixes to bail him out and crush the charges, just like he supposedly did during the initial Florida cover-up. He expects Kendra to give him an update on the family's coordinated legal strategy to save him. And that is when Kendra drops the absolute mother of all bombshells. She calmly informs him that she has, in fact, been in contact with an attorney. She reveals the name, and it is a name that sends a shockwave through the entire Duggar cinematic universe: Travis Story. For those who don't know, Travis Story isn't just a random public defender. He's Jim Bob Duggar's ultimate go-to legal fixer. He's the very same high-powered attorney who aggressively defended Josh Duggar during his catastrophic, highly publicized criminal trial. Travis Story is the man the Duggar family brings in when they need to make massive, brand-destroying legal problems disappear. Hearing that name, Joseph allegedly lets out an audible sigh of relief on the recording. He thinks the cavalry has arrived. He thinks the family machine is working exactly as it was designed to, protecting the men at the expense of the truth. He starts to ask what Travis's plan is to fight his impending extradition to Florida. And with a voice so cold it could freeze fire, Kendra stops him dead in his tracks. She delivers the ultimate knife twist, a sentence that shatters Joseph's entire reality into a million unfixable pieces. She says, "Joe, he is not for you." Let that sink in for a moment. He is not for you. According to explosive insider reports and deep investigative theories, Kendra Duggar has pulled off the most unimaginable, ruthless legal maneuver in the history of this cult. She didn't just hire a lawyer. She allegedly hired the family's own personal legal shark, completely monopolizing his time, his resources, and arguably Jim Bob's wallet, exclusively for herself. Theories suggest that Kendra is acutely aware of the horrific legal jeopardy she has been placed in by simply being in the same house as Joseph. With rumors swirling that child endangerment charges could potentially be leveled against anyone who knew about the alleged Florida incident and failed to protect the children in the Arkansas home, Kendra realized she was about to be the family's designated collateral damage. In this extreme religious environment, the women are always expected to take the fall to protect the public image of the men. But Kendra absolutely refused to be the sacrificial lamb. By securing Travis Story as her own personal representation, she created an impenetrable legal firewall between herself and her husband. She legally severed their interests. The sheer brilliance of this move cannot be overstated. By retaining Jim Bob's own lawyer, she allegedly boxed the family patriarch into a corner, forcing him to fund her defense, because if she goes down and is forced to testify, she could bring the entire multi-million-dollar family empire crashing down with her. She essentially weaponized the family's own legal defense system against the very man she was forced to marry. And as for Joseph, The leaked audio allegedly captures the exact moment his soul leaves his body. He is left stuttering, completely isolated, realizing that his perfectly submissive wife has just legally abandoned him, leaving him to entirely fend for himself against the massive weight of a felony extradition to Florida, with absolutely zero support from the family that swore to protect him. The absolute suffocating dead air on the leaked recording after Kendra delivers that fatal blow is enough to make your blood run cold. You can practically hear the gears grinding in Joseph's mind as the horrifying reality of his situation finally sets in. He is not for you. With those 5 words, Kendra Duggar didn't just end a phone call. She allegedly executed the most ruthless, legally brilliant decapitation of a fundamentalist marriage we have ever witnessed. According to exclusive insider reports, the immediate fallout from this specific moment on the jailhouse tape is what sent the Duggar patriarch Jim Bob into an absolute, unprecedented spiral of panic. Why would Jim Bob's personal, heavily compensated legal bulldog, Travis Story, be exclusively representing Kendra instead of his own flesh and blood son? Wild new theories and leaks from individuals adjacent to the family's inner circle suggest a deeply sinister, financially motivated motive behind this shocking legal arrangement. These insider theories claim that Kendra, realizing she was about to be dragged down into a catastrophic felony investigation regarding the alleged Panama City Beach incident, played the ultimate trump card. She allegedly marched directly to Jim Bob and presented him with a terrifying ultimatum. Either provide her with the absolute best, most aggressive legal defense to completely shield her from any complicity or child endangerment charges, or she would turn around, walk right into a secular police precinct, and become the star witness for the state of Florida. Think about the absolute leverage she suddenly possessed. Reports suggest that Kendra knows where all the literal and figurative bodies are buried, regarding how this family allegedly covers up the darkest sins of its men. If Kendra were to flip, if she were to testify about exactly what Joseph allegedly confessed to during that 2020 vacation, and more importantly, exactly who in the family helped orchestrate the alleged 6-year cover-up, the entire Duggar empire would be reduced to ash overnight. Jim Bob wasn't providing Travis' story to Kendra out of the goodness of his heart or out of a sudden, miraculous respect for his daughter-in-law. Exclusive theories dictate that Jim Bob is allegedly funding this high-powered defense solely to keep Kendra quiet, effectively buying her silence by ensuring she doesn't end up in handcuffs herself. But the undeniable collateral damage of this ruthless, self-serving family preservation tactic is that Joseph has been completely, unequivocally thrown to the wolves. By securing Travis' story entirely for herself, Kendra legally conflicted out the one man who could have potentially saved Joseph from the absolute wrath of the justice system. Rumors swirling around the local courthouses suggest that Joseph has been left utterly abandoned, forced to rely on an overworked, underpaid public defender to fight a massive, highly publicized extradition battle. While Kendra allegedly sits comfortably in an undisclosed private residence, heavily shielded by a multi-million-dollar legal fortress, her husband is sitting in a freezing cell, staring down the barrel of a one-way ticket to a Florida state penitentiary, a judicial system notorious for showing absolutely zero mercy to individuals accused of these specific, horrific types of crimes. This brings us to the ultimate, mind-bending irony of this entire devastating saga. For decades, the Institute in Basic Life Principles, the extreme fundamentalist cult that raised both Joseph and Kendra, has built its entire theology around the absolute subjugation and breaking of women. From the moment Kendra was born, she was meticulously brainwashed to believe that she was fundamentally incapable of independent thought, financial autonomy, or basic self-preservation. She was taught the concept of the umbrella of authority, a doctrine that insists a woman must remain completely submissive and obedient to her father, and then seamlessly transfer that blind, unwavering obedience to her husband. She was told that her head of the household was her ultimate spiritual and physical protector, and that questioning him was a direct offense against God himself. This cult was specifically, mathematically designed to strip women of every single mechanism of independence, ensuring they could never, ever leave, no matter how toxic, abusive, or criminal their husbands became. But in a twist of fate so poetically just that you couldn't even script it for a Hollywood movie, the sheer, unimaginable extremity of Joseph's alleged actions actually broke the psychological programming. The patriarchal machine pushed this keep sweet, giggling, eternally submissive wife so deeply into a corner of terror and legal jeopardy that her only available survival tactic was to completely violently sever the head of the household. Reports indicate that the maternal instinct to protect her four innocent children from being swept into the foster care system by Child Protective Services finally overrode 25 years of intense cult brainwashing. She realized that the very umbrella of protection she was promised was actually a lightning rod, actively drawing a catastrophic legal storm directly toward her children. And so, the subservient, uneducated, perfectly compliant reality television bride allegedly outmaneuvered every single man in her life. She used the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. By legally and financially cutting Joseph loose, weaponizing Jim Bob's own paranoid need for self-preservation to secure her own high-priced attorney, Kendra Duggar executed a flawless checkmate against a system built entirely to enslave her. She didn't just walk away. She legally amputated her husband, leaving him completely exposed to the secular justice system he so arrogantly believed he was above. It is the absolute, definitive death of the IBLP dream. The untainted, perfect golden couple of the Duggar family has ended with a leaked jail call that exposes the raw, ugly, terrifying truth behind the compound walls. That in the end, there is no loyalty, there is no spiritual protection, there is only survival. The giggling is finally over, replaced by the cold, calculating silence of a woman who has finally learned exactly how to play the game. Now, I need to know exactly what you think about this explosive, unprecedented legal maneuvering. Is Kendra actually gearing up to file for a massive, highly publicized divorce from Joseph to permanently save herself and her children? Or do you think these exclusive theories are right, and Jim Bob is simply funding Travis Story's retainer to protect the massive family assets and prevent Kendra from turning state's evidence against the entire Duggar empire? The psychological warfare happening behind the scenes of this leaked audio is absolutely staggering, and the fallout is only going to get darker from here. Let me know your deepest theories and predictions in the comments section below, and you absolutely must hit that subscribe button right now before we expose the rest of this leaked audio and uncover the next layer of this terrifying family cover-up.